Hello, family. Thank you for joining me again for week four. Week four. And we've been discussing some very important topics. And under our theme of understanding the dynamics and challenges of parenting and families. So today is session four, our last session under this theme for the month of February. And today we're going to be discussing the do's and don'ts of work life family balance. I am sure that this topic in particular can resonate with so many people because it absolutely resonates with me. The work life family, trying to put it all together and make sense of it. So, stay tuned. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you some support in that area, and talk about what this all means for us: work, life, and family, and trying to balance it all. So, okay, here we go. Let's get the party started. All right. So, so here we go. We said it's our session four, the do's and don'ts of work-life family balance. And I'll introduce myself again. My name is Quanisha Johnson. I am a licensed counselor and educator. And today we're trying to figure out like what exactly we hear this phrase, work life family balance. Like, what is that? What does that actually mean? And I'm very big on when we have these discussions, defining things, making sense of them. So, work life family balance, we think of um, something that is self-determined, right? What this is actually is a self-determined and self-defined state of your overall well-being, right? When you think of those worlds, work, life, and family, you're defining what it is, right? It is determined by you. We are making sure that we're not looking to media, looking to other friends or family. And so when we're looking at how do we want all of these things to play together or into one another, will work together, it has to be defined by how we see it and by us. The personal goal of managing multiple responsibilities at home, at your job, in the community too. I mean, even in the title, it says work, life, family. Under the umbrella of life itself, there's so many areas. So we're wanting to have this goal with this balance, and I use balance very loosely, of managing our multiple roles that we have in our lives. It's a concept that supports personal health as well as the health of our family. And this is very important. We want to do this without extreme stress or an adverse outcome. So we want to be able to have our health of not only ourselves, but we do all of these things so that we can have the health of the family. So, work life family balance. So, I crossed out the word balance because we're going to take it in a different direction today. We're not going to focus on the word balance, and I'm going to explain to you why we're not going to focus on the word balance and what balance actually is. So, let's define balance, because as I said earlier, I'm very big on defining. Why are we taking a cross through the word balance? Why are we needing to look at it from a different standpoint? So let's look at the word balance as a noun, right? A thing, right? Balance is this thing. So when we think of balance, it's a stability produced by an even distribution of weight, right? So I think about even being in science class, right? And then measuring, there's a section of, I don't know which which science that was, or even math, of balancing both sides. We often think of balance, we think of the picture of the scales, right? And so we're making sure if we were taking marbles or an item, we would go one on this side, one on that side, one on this side, one on that side, until we have an even distribution. So, right? So they're saying here that balance is this, it has to be even. So I want to challenge this, right? I want to challenge this idea of even distribution. That when we're thinking about our work, our family, our overall life, sometimes things are not going to be exactly like this. So when we think of balance, for example, and I like to put things into context. If you decide that you need a day where your body just needs to rest and you need to sleep, and so there are so you spend the day resting, relaxing, recouping, rejuvenating yourself, napping, eating well, doing everything that you need to do to feel good, to be energized again. That does not mean if you spend the day before, it doesn't mean like, oh my goodness, I had this guilt. That means tomorrow when I work, I have to work the same amount of hours that I did the rest of the day before. So this stability piece is, it doesn't always look, things don't look even. It doesn't always have to be exact. I like the idea of it being the mental and emotional steadiness. We want a mental and emotional steadiness. And so when I think of the word steady, I do think of trying to just be in this place where, of course, life is going to, if we're talking about work, life, family, community, right? Our participation, our roles, our responsibilities is going to induce some stress sometimes, right? Trying to get everything together. But I think of what's healthy of this steadiness of our mind and how we're feeling, right? And making sure that that's aligned, that whatever we're doing, that we are together mentally and emotionally. A means of judging or deciding. When I think of judging or deciding when it comes to balance, I think this is a great way to look at it. So we're often with balance or looking at something, we're deciding what needs more on this side, what needs more on that side. What do I need to take a little bit on that side to put it on that side? And so when I think of gaining a balance, the idea of just taking some here, putting some there, and assessing, judging, and deciding what is best. So the last definition I found was interesting, something left over, a remainder. So we don't want to say work, 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 and what's left over is for family. What's left over is for my rest. So we want to look at, we don't want to look at balance as what's left over, the remainder. So we don't want to look at it from that standpoint. Right. So I love dissecting and looking at how is it defined? So this is just simple dictionary definition of the word, the noun form of it. So I have on this side the verb, because I do believe that when we're trying to attain this level of what we call balance, and we're saying we don't really want to use balance because how it can be viewed is very tricky. And so we want balance to be something that we work towards. It's not something that just happens in your life. Through your experiences of working, having a family, through life in general, through your multiple roles, you are going to decide, right? You do something, you create something, you create this balance between all of the items in your life and all of the responsibilities. So to poise or arrange yourself as if to balance, right? We're arranging things. Once again, the use of this verb to move things around. Balance just does not happen. We don't say like we're going to go to work from 9 to 5 and then cook dinner and that's it. And then help our kids with homework and then we're all balanced. It doesn't go that way. So it's an act of arranging. You're constantly balancing or putting things in a certain place. We want to bring harmony or proportion to something, right? So we want to have all of our different roles, our responsibility to things in our life to come together in some form of harmony, right? One item informs the other. So when we're doing our jobs at work and we are spending a lot of time doing that, we may be able to tell that something may be lacking in our family life and vice versa. Right? So one item informs the other. So our goal today is to talk about how do we bring these things into harmony? And it's not necessarily, like I said, about that scale that we learned in our math and science class of even distribution on both sides, right? It's more so about figuring out harmony, creating it. It's an action. Creating balance is action. It's not something that just happens just naturally. So we want to equalize in weight. And we talked about that. It's not always going to look equal. So we can't always make it exactly the way that it is on one side. So there's a conflict between balance, the word balance, and what we're experiencing right now. We are in a global pandemic. This conversation that I would have had with you 2 years ago about work, life, family, how do we balance it all, would have been very different 2 years ago, right? It's something that we still always needed to do. We're always trying to figure out how to merge our worlds together, how to find that harmony. But there is great conflict between that word we crossed out earlier, balance, of us just having things just kind of exactly this way. And so balancing is challenging during this hard time. So we have a global pandemic, right, that we're going through right now. So when we think of the COVID-19 pandemic, we think of the great impacts on African Americans, on Black people, Black Americans. The COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately affected us. We have we're basically 13%, 13.4% of the population. But contracting COVID, we're 3 times more likely to contract the virus and be adversely impacted. So the death toll is large for us. There is economic instability there and a threat to that, right? So it's very challenging not to look at work life, family, the coordination, the balance of it all without looking at what we're experiencing right now and how all of that plays into all of the pandemic plays into that. So intergenerational trauma, we talked about it a few weeks ago. Intergenerational trauma and systemic racism have led to a greater vulnerability during this pandemic. So because of systems already in place due to racism, because of intergenerational trauma passed down from generation to generation, based upon what our experience was over 400 years ago, we are very vulnerable to this pandemic, right? The impact is so great because, like I said, things are embedded in systems. And so everything is harder. So we think about job loss we're experiencing at great rates, loss or threat of housing, food insecurity, and a general lack of resources. And I'll give you an example to bring it together. And like I said, this part is important to talk about because I would be remiss to discuss work-life family without looking at what's going on right at this moment as I'm speaking to you that's really causing this shift in how we would choose to balance or create harmony between those worlds. So if we look at job loss, for example, so we have an unemployment rate for Black Americans of 12%. The pre-pandemic numbers were 5.8%. So I want to give you another example. And so basically, African Americans are underrepresented in certain jobs, right? And we're overrepresented in certain areas. So we are overrepresented in areas of office support, food service, production work, and we're underrepresented in certain careers, right? And so these careers that we're underrepresented in, education and workforce training, creative arts and management, health professionals, business and legal professionals, and property maintenance and agriculture. We are underrepresented in those areas. So the areas that we're overrepresented in are the areas hardest hit by the pandemic. So when we talk about work-life balance, what if there's no work? What if there's no work? And we need work, right? We need to be able to take care of our families with that work. So there is conflict that is created right now, right? There is conflict. This pandemic is threatening how we see the connection between all of those roles that we have, all of those responsibilities. All of those factors, like I said, I named, it disrupts this idea of balance. It disrupts it. How do you gain balance in a situation like this? So we have the mental health implications. So because of what I just explained to you, there is great psychological distress. There's fear, there's anxiety, right? Of not catching the virus, not dying from the virus, staying healthy, keeping your family healthy, wanting to make sure that you are you have the resources that you need to take care of yourself and your family. So we are in distress. There's also a lack of physical and mental health care and access to it, because think of all of what I discussed in the prior slide about the implications related to trauma and systemic racism. So we're still in a situation we are lacking the appropriate physical and mental health care. And the stigma still exists. The stigma about mental health care, needing help, feeling as though if we are to go to a healthcare professional and ask for help and say we have a problem, we want to be believed. So with this whole virus, there is a lot of mental health implications, the stress, the fear, the anxiety that's going on, and the lack of access to the appropriate care. So I want to talk about some common assumptions when it comes to work, life, and family, and this whole concept of like how we see it, how the balance is created. So I have three areas. So family, and these are common assumptions. Family is the responsibility of women, right? So I want to talk a little bit about this as being a myth. In conjunction with work is the responsibility of a man. Every home looks different. We cannot make any assumptions. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. And we said in a family, families look different. Families have different members. And so we can't make an assumption that it goes this way, right? In a home, you are merging with partners. You're in a partnership. So you are creating a foundation for your children, and figuring out what works best. So we can't just assume these areas. It's a common assumption. However, and let me be extremely honest about this. So when we talk about the impact of the pandemic on work, we have to make sure that we're understanding that women of color, right, are specifically disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And I'm going to give you reasons, not reasons to add to the common assumptions, but reasons that are valid. For one, women of color are disproportionately represented, right, in these areas with work, like I named earlier, with Black Americans in general. Restaurants, retail, education, healthcare, and other essential, right? We heard that term so much, and other essential industries, right? So when we look at that, that is once again where job loss is. In general, women, and I'm not specifying Black women or women of color, 80% of 346,000 women dropped out of the workforce, are no longer in the workforce due to the pandemic. For one, there is a caregiving crisis, right? So every child does not go to school, right? Some kids right now are being educated 100% at home. Some are going a couple of days a week, right? So for one, the educational portion of it, so women these women that we're talking about are at home figuring out how to take care of their children because someone needs to take care of their child. And every home does not have a two-parent home. So in many homes in the Black community, if there are single parents in these homes, then the woman is predominantly caring and figuring out what to do. Educating the children, if a child is not school age, working with them. And so basically, women are needing to schedule their paid work around these responsibilities and around these duties when it comes to remote learning specifically, right? Children are home. So it makes these great challenges and these disparities that are occurring right now. So I wanted to bring up those two myths, those common assumptions, and say that it is not necessarily the case in homes, right? In terms of work, life, and family. But families are different. But this pandemic absolutely does have a disproportionate effect on women and work. Lastly, if we look at the last box, there is choice when deciding how to engage in work. That is a common misconception, that there is a choice. You know, someone could say, well, just work from home. But as I just explained to you, that's challenging in itself, right? Not every job allows for working from home. If you are an essential employee who needs to go into a location or to a location for your work, you can't do that, right? And then even if you are working from home, there's challenges in that because of what I said of what's going on. So the caregiving crisis, the children working from home and they're remote learners. So it's an assumption to say, well, you know how we work off this work-life family situation? Just do this for your job or just work from home. And so every family is different, and not every family, the members, the parents have choices as to how they're going to engage in their work life. So we're going to, earlier we took that word balance, we defined it. We're going to take the word balance, and although we sometimes interchangeably use it, we're going to replace balance with integration. We're going to integrate these worlds we're talking about, right? So we want to look at it from this standpoint. Integration, if we're defining it, right? It's a verb, it's something that we do. We're going to basically blend. I like this idea. This definition I like. We're going to form, coordinate, blend into a functioning unified whole. And I like the idea of it being a functioning unified whole, right? It has to function and it has to make sense, right? It can't just be something you're blending together and it doesn't work, right? So if we're saying we want to achieve this work-life family integration. Now we're going to put balance to the side for a second. And if we want to achieve that, right? And we want to coordinate, blend these things together, and we want it to function, then maybe, and this is all contingent upon the family that you are a part of, maybe a 14-hour workday does not allow for that, for all of the other parts to come together, because there's only 24 hours in one day, right? So that might not work. That might not work, because remember, if we're in a home, in a single parent household, it may look different, right? But it's harder. There's challenges because you're doing it by yourself. But also in a 2-parent household, there's challenges in that as well, because if you have both parents working and trying to figure things out, you're merging those worlds together. You're trying to create a functioning. You don't just want one parent to have a work-life family integration and balance. You're wanting both parents to have that, to have healthy children. They need to see it from both ends, right? So we want to make sure that we're coordinating, and it's functioning so that there could be a unified whole, right? All of the parts make the whole. To incorporate into a larger unit. What's that larger unit? Your life. Your life is the larger unit. And everything you're putting things in it. You're taking things out of it. You're adjusting things to unite with something else. So when we're integrating, we're uniting. So we can't just say work and say, this is what it is. I'm working, right? We can't look at it from that standpoint. We're uniting. We're putting things together. Integration allows, and this is why I like integration versus balance, it allows for a balance to shift. It's what I explained earlier. When we're integrating, right? And when we think of the word balance as well, things are going to shift. If one day you're deciding that this is a day I am recharging, it doesn't mean that the next day I'm going to say, I was recharging and I spent that day. Here goes my guilt. Now I'm doing a 14-hour workday. It doesn't necessarily go that way. The balance will shift. There's some nights that it calls for doing more of one area, right? The work, life to family, participation in your community. If you're a church member, there may be duties, responsibilities, your roles that call for a little bit more. So the balance will constantly shift. So when you're integrating, you're blending it together, right? You're also making that assessment. And we're going to talk about that. You're making that assessment. So let's talk about some do's. Let's talk about do's. Do establish your values. I think this is so important. It's so important when we're trying to figure out this work-life family integration piece. When we're merging things together, we need to establish first and foremost, what are my values? And when we think of values, we think of what is important to me right now. What is important to me right now? And I use the word right now because things change. There are core values that we have, our morals, those things are core. But I mean, for example, there was a time when I was a student. I was a student. And so if I think value is, my values are connected to what's important to me right now. When I was a student and I was in a master's program, right? For example, you know, school at that time was a great value for me. So my other things I had going on, rather, in my leisure, time with friends, family, they were all in my value system, right? And my part of my values, they were all important to me, but school was in there. So in that equation of how much time am I spending with my family? How much time am I working? I had to also add my hours for class and for studying, for doing my papers, for reading, right? So right now I am no longer a student at a school. So when I'm figuring out my values, I think school is amazing and I'm a lifelong learner. But when I'm thinking about what's important to me right now, right, in terms of what I need to do with that work life family integration piece, school's not a factor. So when I'm establishing my value or values or looking at my values, I have to say what is important to me right now? What's important to you right now? So answer that question as I say that. Think about that. What is important to you right at this very moment? And that is something to absolutely reflect on. And what are your goals? What are your goals for work, for family, other aspects of your life? You have to have an idea of that. And so when I say work life family, I like when I say the life piece, I want to give examples of what that life piece entails. So, and these are just examples. You can think of what it means to you. So, we're not just talking about going to your job, and I know a lot of us are working from home. Um, and so I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about work and then your health, work and your personal life, right? Having a personal life. I'm talking about not just work in conjunction with your with life in general, but with your spiritual life, right? I'm talking about exercise. I'm talking about your friends. Of course, we're talking about family. We're talking about any relationships you have. We're talking about duties in the household. So when we are thinking about goals for work, for family, and other aspects, so those other aspects are all of those things I named. So we're trying to find harmony with all of those things and work. We're trying to figure that out. Or if we're in a place, as we discuss with what's going on with the pandemic, we are trying to we might be looking for work or doing side jobs or part-time jobs to obtain income to live, to have this life, to support this family. So we don't want to look at work as insignificant. Of course, work's important. That's why those numbers I gave you earlier, I wanted to explain to you that I understand that things look different. The conversation is different about work-life family integration because everything is just different right now. Our lens we're looking through is different. So it's important to note that. So the next step, the next thing we want to do is assess where you are. So, how am I functioning with my multiple roles in relation to my values? So, we just talked about what values are. And so, you have to look at what your values are, what's important to you right now. Remember, when we talk about this work life balance or work life integration, it is self defined and self determined. We're not getting this information from social media. We're not getting this information from how a friend situation works. We can absolutely gain support, get support, talk to people, right? But ultimately, when we're doing this assessment, it's a self assessment. There is no way to know what to do next unless you know where you are right at that moment. You have to know where you are to know where you need to go, right? In that order, right? So, first and foremost, we're assessing, how am I functioning? Pay attention. You have multiple roles in your life. How are you doing? Right? And we're not assessing it so that we could be down on ourselves. beat ourselves up, say we're not doing enough. Oh, I'm a terrible mother. Or, oh, my boss is going to think that I'm not a diligent employee. So we're not doing it so that we can kick ourselves. We need to assess how we're functioning. If there are adverse outcomes, if there's an extremes amount of stress, if how I am managing my work life, right, or how I'm working, and I look at my family situation and maybe that's suffering due to work, or vice versa, maybe I'm needing to figure some things out with my family, how to spend the time with them, to give the things they need, but I need to also work and make sure that they have food on the table, make sure there's resources there. So basically, we're looking at where we are, right? Doing a true assessment, sitting in that. Where am I? At the end of every day, am I so overwhelmed? Am I so stressed that I can't take it? Is there so much anxiety, right? We talked about there's already a layer of anxiety that's just in the air because of the pandemic. Collectively, we have this experience. All of our experiences look different, right? Just like in a family, there's different members. We're one great big family, right? And we all have different experiences, but collectively we're going through something, right? But it's so that we could see what needs to change. So assess where you are. Sometimes we're going, moving, thinking, what do I do next? How do I pay for this? How do I need to work an extra hour, but I don't know when. Oh, my kids need this. We're moving, and we don't slow down enough to see how we're doing. Slow down, assess where you are. That is the only way to figure out what you need to change, what needs to stay the same. Do realize what's going on right now. So, when I say that it's me repeating where we are, look at the present moment. Look at the present moment. You are balancing, right? This word balancing, this phrase balancing during a global pandemic. You have to give yourself grace. You cannot compare how you are integrating all of your pieces to how you were doing so in 2018. You can't look at it from that lens, because that lens will give you a false sense of what's going on right now. And it'll make you kick yourself more and be down on yourself and disappointed. And so our work life integration is just so different. Even if we think about those who are working from home, for example, they're they're taking integration, present company included, to a whole nother level, right? Everything's merged together. Working from home, everything's merged. Your office, everything, even if there's no formal office, your home is the office. Some people are literally working from a closet, their bedroom, their dining room, their living room, any space that they have, while in the next room is their kid's classroom. And so ultimately, there's no separation. So we're integrating on a different level. It's just different. And things just feel different. And the balance is absolutely off. That's why I said we can't have balance be one on this side, one on that side. Then I put more. We can't have it. It's not always going to be that equilibrium. It's not always going to look exactly the same, right? We are in a situation where we are off balance and we're trying to figure out what is working. And like I said, when you're working from your home and everything's merging together, right? You're working, but then someone needs help with something they're working on online. And so you might be working, stop and do that. Then you are also, you are the lunch person. If your mom or dad or whatever, whoever the caregiver is, you're stopping and you are the lunch person and you're you're making lunch. You're doing everything all at once, right? And you're truly blending. We said blending, you're really blending, and there are no lines. And sometimes that feels very, very overwhelming and that feels uncomfortable, right? So when we were allowed to go out to work, right, those who don't work from home, it's a different situation, but there's another level of stress of going out every day. But ultimately, when life allowed for us to go out safely and go to work, you got to separate. You got to go to your job and say, these are the hours, that I'm working, and decide that, and then say, this is the time to pick up the children. I would like to possibly have dinner ready by this time. And so you're allowed to do that. So things are very, very different now. So instead of kicking yourself, it's about just realizing what's going on right now and working with what's right in front of us. Sometimes getting too caught up in, the past and what the past was, or I love the hope for the future, but I love that. I love looking ahead in a positive light, but I also really, really think it's important to look at the present moment. Like, this is just what's going on right now at this time. These are the things that I did my self-assessment, and these are the things that I need to do, especially working from home. I know it doesn't look the same, so I'm going to give myself grace. In order for me to have this work life family integration work, I need to give myself grace. I need not kick myself. I need not to do things or add to my plate and make myself more frustrated than I already feel. Do set realistic goals. Making sure your goals are realistic. This applies to your work responsibilities and duties, as well as other parts of your life. Your goals have to work for you. They have to work for you. They have to make sense, right? And so ultimately, making sure that you're setting goals that are realistic. If you set unrealistic goals, that is where the defeat comes in if you don't get something achieved. And that's where you often sometimes will feel like down on yourself because you didn't do something. Set goals that are realistic to you in your lifestyle and the lifestyle of your family. That's the only thing that you can do, and everything. So you might be someone who wants to do a Zoom, with your friends online, and your other friends, they're online Zooming, having a chat 5 days a week, but you can't join because you're working these hours, because you have other responsibilities. So when you're setting goals for your work, life, family, and when I say life, remember, when we're thinking about the word life, we're talking about all aspects of life: the friends, other relationships, your community work, spiritual work, all of those things. When you're setting goals for that, just being mindful of setting realistic goals. A very, very important part: setting specific work hours. And the challenge in doing this is for people who work from home, is that home is work and work is home. Everything is there. More than ever, it is important, if you're especially working from home, to do so. If you are going out for work, it's important to do that too. I know outside, it may there may be access or the availability of picking up extra shifts or extra hours to make more money. And so I know those things happen, and I know that everyone, like I said, has to do what's best for their families. But the importance, especially during this time, of setting specific work hours, they really are important, right? So like knowing that this is the time where I'm going to stop. And if you did your self-assessment, remember, you're learning from experience. You're assessing what's going to work for you and what changes need to be made. And if you set hours, then you could decide those other aspects of your life. How do those things play together? How do I blend, right, things together? How do I integrate all of those pieces of the puzzle, right, of life? How do I integrate all of those things? Is I'm making sure these are my very specific hours. If there's a chance or a time where you have to step outside of that, then you do so, right? Do whatever you need to do, but being mindful of the importance of setting very specific hours so that there is some type of separation in your house and that everything doesn't feel like it's just nonstop. Everyone needs a break. Everyone needs a break. What's important also is creating a to-do list. So creating a to-do list is fantastic. Every day, I love the idea of waking up with intention for your day. Waking up with intention. Now, remember, it says it says realistic goals. So when I'm creating a to-do list, I'm creating a list or putting items on this list that are realistic for me and my lifestyle. I'm going to make it make sense for my work, for my life, for my family, right? And everything else that involves those things. So if I'm waking up with intention and I am putting together what I would like to do for the day, I'm doing so, but I'm being realistic about it. Sometimes a list of 20 things is not of an effective to-do list. It's an overwhelming to-do list, right? So it doesn't matter sometimes the quantity, the number of things on your list. Sometimes it's just the quality of it, right? You have these two important tasks for work that must be done. You have these duties, your children have these appointments that must be taken care of. So ultimately, creating your to-do list. Your to-do list is not supposed to rule over you, though. You're not supposed to look at the list and because you missed something, once again, that kicking yourself, because you missed something, it is not the end of the world, right? Take that item, right? Especially if it's something that is not. Now, emergencies are different. Things that must be taken care of that day are very different. I do not want to minimize important things, but take that item and put it on the next day. And when you get things done on your list, cross it out to feel that sense of accomplishment, right? So every day having an intention, but not letting the list rule over you so that you can create something that like holds over you and you feel upset because you don't get certain things done. Do redefine what success looks like. So I talked to you about, of course, everything with the pandemic. So making sure we are not using the past as the measure. And the past is important. We don't want to forget the past. And sometimes the past does inform us, right? We know what we can do, what we can accomplish, what we want things to look like, because we can do it. We remember, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we were able to accomplish these things at work, when we were able to spend time with our families, engage with, our community. We remember that, and we're not supposed to forget that. Of course, the past informs the present, right? But I want you to think about like success. What is your measure of success? Examine each area of your life and ask yourself that question. What's your measure? And when we think about this, it's a favorable or desired outcome. That's what success is. I am successful because this is a favorable and desired outcome for my situation, for my life, for my family, right? And once again, I'm repeating, these things are self-defined and self-determined. What I say is success for my work-life family integration may not be what you say is for your work-life family integration. It all looks different. Success is not based on things necessarily, right? For some people, it might be. I have no judgment, not here to do that, right? Success is often based on a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Purpose and fulfillment, right? So when we think about that, purpose and fulfillment in our work life family, right? Your success may not be obtaining this tangible item. It may be, right, at the end of your day, when you've worked from the corner of your room. If you're someone in search of a job right now during this tough economic time and you looked up jobs and you applied and you worked on your resume, success at the end of your day may be you asking yourself, did I take care of myself today? Did I take care of myself today? And if I answer yes, if I met all of my needs, this day was successful, right? Did I feed my family? I made sure that everyone ate. They ate all of their meals and snack in between. I made sure the kids were hydrated because they don't like water, right? I'm successful, right? If I'm working, did I make sure that during the allotted hours of my work schedule from my computer in the corner of the room, I did the best that I could during my allotted work hours? Then I was successful, right? So I want you to redefine what success looks like, right? And success is self determined, right? And it's a favorable or desired outcome. What do you desire to happen? And remember, we're in a pandemic. So I'm looking at the time we're in right now. And so looking at what is successful to you, it may look different than what it was before. It doesn't mean we can't get back to that place, right? And duplicate that. It just means that when I'm looking at success, I'm going to look at how I'm measuring it and be realistic with how I'm measuring it. Control the controllables, right? This is a time where we feel very much so out of control. There was a time months ago where you were told, do not leave unless you're going out for the essentials. And there was a national lockdown, right? For the most part. So there's so much that changes and shifts during this pandemic time, right? The numbers are high, the numbers are getting here. If you keep up with the media, you really will be taking for a roller coaster ride. So there's so much that we feel like we don't have any control of. We don't know, right? So we have to ask ourselves, what are the things that I can do? It's really, really easy to look at all of the things that you cannot do or what you're not doing right now and hyper focus on that area. So we talked about values, goals, measure of success. So the focus has to be on the things that matter and the things that you can control. The things that matter and the things that you can control. Let's not look at all of the I don't have, I can't do, and look at what can I do. There is always something that we can do. I may not be able to go into the office setting to work, but I can work to the best of my ability from my laptop. And I can do my best to help my children with their work, even though they're not getting a 5-day-a-week education in school. I know what is missing right now. I'm aware. I believe we all are aware of what is missing, what we would like to see happen. And I want us to keep the hope. But we want to focus on the things that matter. Remember those values, what's important to you, and the things that we know we can do something about, the things that we can have some sort of impact on. Do get the support that you need. So we're going to collaborate, talk, and build. Collaborate with a spouse, a partner, a family member. I don't have on their friend. So collaborate with someone, right? Get with someone and get the support that you're in need of. There's a lot going on all at once. And sometimes in order to make this work, life, family integration situation work for you, you're needing to collaborate and not do it all by yourself. If you are doing it all by yourself, it is important to seek out help. Talk to a therapist or a counselor. Sometimes it's just so much and we feel like we're bearing the weight all by ourselves. Sometimes even when people are around us, when we're in a home with people, we just feel like we need to to sort out some things with someone that doesn't know us. We want to, earlier I talked about the stigma in getting appropriate care. Appropriate care, when I say the word care, it's healthcare. Can be mental health care, physical care, right? Going to your primary care doctor, as well as your mental health professional. Sometimes just getting the opportunity to just have that conversation, to get feedback, to get support, encouragement, to get strategies to help us. So getting the support that we need is important. Building support networks. Are there other friends who their children are virtually learning? Are you on social media and you find a Facebook group where there are other moms, other dads, other grandparents that are at home with children trying to navigate their work with raising their children who are home due to school being not open 5 days a week? And so you find that group, join. Does your church, if you're a member of a church or belong to a church or a local church that you may not even be a member, you might see what they're doing. And they have different networks. Maybe their physical building is not open, but many churches are continuing to offer services, offer groups, Bible study, all online. Everything's online, right? You have access to it. And so getting the support that you're needing, right? Talking to people. I'm speaking, very loosely about going online. What if getting online is an issue? What if there's a Wi-Fi issue? And this is what I mean about getting support, talking to people, reaching out, right? Because it might be something that you're in need of that someone can help you with, and you won't know until you ask around. Till you ask a friend like, hey, I'm struggling, right now I'm in a situation where my job is closed and I'm struggling financially. Do you know of a way where there's an offering of free Wi-Fi, or there's a discount for it, or how I can access Wi-Fi? Anything. So building your support networks, collaborating with others, talking to people, collaborating with your community, talking with a therapist, getting whatever support that you feel that you are in need of so that you can thrive. So that you can thrive in this challenge of work, life, family integration. Don't compare yourself. So we have now transitioned out of the do's and we are officially in the don'ts. Don't compare yourself. And I will tell you why. I know you've heard this. If not, I'm going to repeat this. Comparison is the thief of your joy. Once again, work-life family integration is self-determined and self-defined. It is very easy to look from the outside and look in, right? I'm standing out here and I'm looking at what someone else is doing, and it looks like they have it all together. They look like they are balanced. Those scales are equal and all. How do they manage? How do they do it? It looks like it's all together. So then we are looking at that, and then we are then looking at ourselves. And then we are internalizing all of these negative feelings about who we are and what we can't do and what's wrong with us. And we don't want to do that. We want to pay attention to what's right in front of us, and we don't want to compare ourselves. So when we're trying to figure out how this can all work, we want to look at our specific situation. When we're assessing what we need to do in terms of how much, do I have set work hours? Do I have I allotted enough time to do virtual schooling with the children? Have I reached out to support networks because I'm feeling overwhelmed? And we want to make sure that we are looking right, what's right in front of us at what we're doing and not what someone else is doing. Don't forget you. This is so important for you not to forget you. We need, right, to do a better job of putting ourselves higher on our list or on our own to-do list. And that is a quote from the great Michelle Obama, right? Do a better job of putting ourselves higher on our to-do list. We each have this life, but it starts with us and how we want it to be and what we want to add to it. So remember the questions of like, how are you taking care of yourself, right? Don't forget yourself, because we can't say work, life, family balance, work, life, family integration. The life part is in there, right? Who's living the life, this specific life I'm talking about, this one is mine, you have yours. And so for all of this to work, to be integrated, to be successful, depending on what your measure is, don't forget yourself. Are you meeting your basic needs? When you're working and you're working from home and the children are in the next room, AKA the bedroom classroom, and everything's going on at once, sometimes you might forget to meet your basic needs. Don't take those for granted. Basic needs, right? Taking care of your body, eating, having water, something to drink, nourishing ourselves, exercise. To combat these stress, we need these endorphins, right? We got to get these endorphins going. And so exercise, the stress of it all, the fear that we're facing about what's happening next, the anxiety, when are my children going back to school? All of the questions, right? Not that exercise solves the problem, right? We're not saying that, but it's healthy and good for your body. It's healthy for your body. No doctor ever said health exercise is bad for your body. If you have a physical condition where you have to exercise differently or lighter, that's different. But exercise is good for your body. Going for a walk, stretching, waking up in the morning and stretching your body out, right? So don't forget you. Having mindful moments. Earlier, I stated that we often are looking way in the past, or we're so far in the future that we forget what's happening right in front of us right now. Take deep breaths. Focus right on the moment that's in front of you. Notice, breathe, and cope. NBC. Notice how you're feeling right at that moment. Take 3 deep breaths. And then what is your coping skill? What do you need to do? Do you need rest? Do you need to write in your journal because you're having these feelings, you're feeling overwhelmed and you need to get something out? But your mindful moment, focusing on the moment will help you. So very importantly, don't forget you. Don't say yes to everything. This applies to all aspects of your life. I am a therapist by an educator. I'm also a parent, and my children ask for a lot of things. And although I want to, give them things and do things for them, and they ask for a lot, I can't always say yes. I cannot. Sometimes mommy has to work because I want to provide something for them, right? I have to be able to apply this. Don't say yes to everything to all aspects. I can't do everything. And no, when we're saying no, no is equal to healthy boundaries. No does not mean you're mean. It doesn't mean you're nasty. No does not have to be a harsh thing, right? So if for at work, like, you have this responsibility, your children have a doctor's appointment, a dentist appointment, whatever. And so you're asked by your boss, which, your job is important. Jobs are more scarce, right? We talked about those unemployment numbers, the disproportionate impact to the Black community. We talked about all of that. Your boss asks you, can you stay? I need you to do this an extra hour, right? You want to be a great employee. You want to work hard, but it's not like about saying, no, I won't do that. But you have this obligation that you know you have to meet. So there's a way. It's not about it's about saying no, is understanding your healthy boundaries, what you're needing to do, right? Because you have assessed your work, life, family integration, where you are and what you need to do. So you're asked to do something an extra hour, but you have this obligation for family. So maybe it's not a no, but it's, I'm not able to do this today, but I can do this at this time. So no does not have to be packaged as no. It could be worded as maybe not at this time. Maybe I'm reserving time to do that another time, because they're in my in my family, my community balance, my general life balance, there are other obligations that you have. So it's understanding that when you say no, it's not a word meant to harm people. It's a word that aligns with your boundaries. And what are boundaries? Boundaries are lines. A boundary is a line that marks the limit of an area, right? So I love that definition. And these are like very simplistic dictionary definitions. And I like to kind of break them down. As some of them I don't think work, but some of them I love the visual of it. I think of the boundary as the line, right? That marks the limits of an area, right? We're not crossing over this part. This is as far, the limitations. And so you have to know your boundaries. These are your limitations. And so we're constantly in a place where we're assessing what our boundaries are. Here are my limitations. Saying yes to you is so important, and your boundaries equal your self-respect, like you, that you respect you and what you need, and your accountability for you as well. Avoiding burnout, so important. So, burnout is the emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by prolonged or repeated stress. We don't want to get burnt out. We want to figure out, especially now, we talked about this, especially now, we don't want to be burnt out. So, we want to make sure that we're not at that place. When it's prolonged, we're going to feel stress, but it's like prolonged emotional, mental, physical exhaustion. That repeated stress over and over again. I'm doing this routine daily, and it's often associated with work, but you can also be burnt out in other aspects of your life. If you do community work and you're very passionate about community work, and you're doing it, but yet, like, once again, you're integrating other parts of your life, you can become burned out, right? With burnout, it feels like there are too many tasks. You're feeling out of control, and you're trying to, like, what you're even sometimes asked to do doesn't line up with your sense of who you are. And that's why we often hear burnout with work. Sometimes at work, we're given duties and responsibilities that don't align with who we are, but we're still doing it. And it feels just overwhelming. So making sure that we're aware of that and aware of what the physical symptoms are. If we're feeling fatigue, you're dealing with headaches, anger, irritability, and just every day you go to work, you have your family. And remember, everything spills over into the other thing. If we're feeling burnout at work, it will absolutely spill over into the other parts of your life. So we want to be very aware. We want to be aware of the emotional, mental, and physical impact that everything has on our lives, and pay attention to that. So we want to avoid it. And that's why we talk about work-life family integration, because we're wanting to avoid feeling burnt out. We're wanting to meet success in our life, our personal desired outcome of how we want things to look. We want this to all be self-defined. We want to give ourselves grace. It's a tough time, right? I commend everyone who is trying to put all the pieces together, to blend, as we said earlier, to integrate. You know what time it is? It's that time in our discussion that we are going to do our reflection activity. So this is what I want you to do. What does this all mean to you? I have work first. So I want you to answer these questions. Work is, my family is, I feel fulfillment in my life when it comes to work, life, and family, I need to. So what I would like for you to do, take out your journals, and I would like for you to answer each question, and answer the question the way that it comes to you. And remember earlier, your do was to assess. So these questions in your journal writing, these prompts will help you to assess what these things look like, right? And to answer these questions and to see what all of this means to you. And as always, I really do like to model. So I answer the questions for you to give you an example. Work is a means to support my family and their needs. It is a part of my purpose, but my purpose in life is not to work. Work allows for me to help and serve others, which I absolutely love to do. My next part is my family is. My family is a great joy to me, and spending time with them brings me a lot of happiness. I feel fulfillment in my life when I ask myself, what do I need? And then I listen to myself. Sometimes I know I need to complete a task, but my body requests for a moment of rest. When I can take care of myself and then others, I'm at my best. My next prompt: when it comes to work, life, and family, I need to remove the pressure on myself for everything to align perfectly. Remember that perfect balance. It has to be perfectly like this. Right now, I am doing my best and taking everything one day at a time. So, your turn. Your turn to answer these prompts, do an assessment of where you are, and what does this work life family balance, if you want to call it, work life family integration, what does it all mean to you? Just reflecting on what that looks like and what works best for you is the best thing that you can do for yourself. Stop the video now. So we are at the end of our time together. And I hope today you receive resources that are helpful and supportive to you. And as always, be well. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. And I will see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.